got bit by a German Shepherd one time. There was a new dog in a new house at the door. This animal was untrained, adopted from somebody else who didn't raise it properly, and it was my very first time I didn't even know that dog was there. My friend's roommate came to the door, opened it up real nonchalantly. This dog jumped out, bit me in the quad right next to the junk, right before my wedding. Now, we all know how that marriage went. And it's interesting. So we gathered there a few days a week, I think 3 days a week or so, for group workouts. This was honestly one of the foundational people and really things that helped me start my fitness process and developing this. So we'd come back there often. That dog never gave anybody else any troubles. But after that one very first interaction there, this thing was protecting its home. It was instinct. It bit me. Didn't know any better. But I was always scared of that animal. I didn't trust it. And every time that dog came around me, it was cool with everybody else, but it came around me, and it would growl, it would threaten me, it would brush against my leg, showing me who was boss, and it could just feel that I was scared. And its instinct was to be the alpha, to keep the pack in its place. So that energy, even though, there wasn't like there was any sort of weird interaction between us, it just knew intuitively, it felt it. And I've been on a mission. I always love to understand how things actually work. So, we've talked other times about really breaking down and learning finance and economics on a fundamental scientific level. And I've been really kind of delving into this process, trying to understand the true nature and interactions of men and women, why our instincts are certain ways they are, why men, even if they're totally in love, are always going to notice the beautiful 22-year-old women, are going to have an instinctive desire for variety, even if they only want to be with that one person. And also, why women always want to upgrade and trade, while they have this instinctive thing to break a man down, to shit test him, to see if he can, if he's worthy, or if they can walk all over him, and then they want to upgrade and trade. Hypergamy, access to men with resources, it was the survival thing, right? So in this interaction between men and women over thousands and thousands of years, since the beginning of humanity, probably there was, I'm guessing, nuclear families during, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, prior to that. So men were just bigger and stronger, and during pregnancy, women were exceptionally vulnerable. They needed to have some support, especially, not only during pregnancy, but raising that child at a young age. Over time, we ended up where, men they were stronger and continued to develop that and breed that into us. We have good proprioception. Overall, we're better at spatial awareness, at athletic stuff. We understand cause and effect, problem, solution, threat, eliminate the threat. And women, they had to be able to get things not only out of men, but to survive well within the tribe. And you never wanted to be on the outside. You get pushed out, you're as good as dead back in those days, in these small groups, these small villages. They say up to 150 people, usually probably 60 to 90. You never wanted to be on the outside, because that could be a death sentence, right? So, women naturally, their instinct over time developed better and better to get what they needed out of men, and to be able to also, get what they needed out of the tribe, to push the female threats out, so they could get the men that had the best status, the most access to the most resources. And if you think about it, man, there is no point in trying to get into winning manipulation, winning arguments, winning that type of stuff with women. They're just naturally, instinctively better at it. They have an intuition that we just don't. Just like men have an intuition, here's a problem, I have to solve it. Women are all about, they want to feel it. They want to share their feelings. They are not necessarily even trying to solve the problem. So throughout all of humanity, this certain dynamic, until the last, 40 or 50 years, since, masculinity has been shamed and horrible. And that's a whole nother topic. We'll come back to that. But throughout history, there was this dynamic. Men were access to resources. Women got what they needed through being detectives, through understanding things intuitively that men didn't see or notice. And the same way that dog felt that energy on me, women can feel that on a man when he is broken, when he is not he doesn't have his inner strength and his energy and his vibrations right. He doesn't believe in himself the way that he should or could. And so, what is our instinct? What have we been taught, in society, right? We're going to, go up to a woman, compliment her, try to bribe her for attention with a drink or with a cool car or whatever it might be. And I played this the worst out of everybody in the world. I did this stunt riding stuff real serious through college, did shows and performances and everything. I was in places of, in those environments, high status, being the center of attention, having skills and capabilities and associations that other men that were watching and admired what me and the guys who I, really brought me up with them who are better than me were, what we did. And this is before Facebook, before YouTube, before MySpace, and man, my approach was so bad, right? Like I could catch the attention of a woman. I could get her on the back of my bike. I could capture that interest initially, but I also completely leaned on that bribe for her attention, for her approval. Same way with others, with men outside of, let's say they didn't know that I did this stunt riding thing. Well, I had to make sure to educate them about how amazing I was. And, it was like an instant turnoff. You could have been the baddest MF in the world, but the way I approached women talking about how cool I was because of this thing I did, chased them off because they felt that energy. They felt that insecurity. It was really obvious that there was something within me that I needed something to bribe them for that interest. And I never got it. I was stunting at the time. These were big bikes. Stunt riding, they got down to 600cc bikes. Mine was first a terrible bike to start stunt riding on. It was a TL1000R, a big fuel-injected V-twin, heavy. It was, everything about it was wrong. Then a 900RR, which carbureted, 4-cylinder, still a big old bike. But then I'd see these kids on 250 and 500 Ninjas, but they had a different level of swagger, and I could be the baddest dude there. And still somehow one of these other little wieners that couldn't ride and had a little wiener bike ended up with the hot girl after the initial phase of I got with the guy that's the center of attention wore off. Why was that? Well, these other dudes carried themselves better. They didn't need to bribe them for their attention with their informing them of their status or their motorcycle or their car or whatever else. And the same way, so especially when I was, first divorced, another situation, man. I was in a cool high status situation. I had this rig before I converted it to the 4x4 camper. This was a limo from the presidential motorcade, not extended, but it's badass back there. And I'd have it loaded full of weed and booze. I had a homie that's been a DJ in the middle of the best clubs downtown. I was always up in the DJ booth, never paid a cover. Bartenders were giving me shots. I thought I was a baller. One of the many things I did wrong was I just got way too tanked. But the other thing was, again, even though I was in this high status position, that vibration of being broken, of being insecure, that was on me, and they could feel it. And it was almost instant, on the dance floor, at the bar, wherever it was. It didn't matter how much external stuff I was bribing them for their attention or their approval with. Just like that dog that felt it instinctively, intuitively. Women's instinct, women's intuition, to just know and feel that is just there. And we feel it as men too, we get it, but it's not so I think they are way more conscious of it. We don't have any idea what we're doing really as men when it comes to dating, relationships, approaching women, etc. We're taught everything completely wrong. Disney, love at first sight, happily ever after. We're never taught about actually providing value, maintaining frame, the masculinity, even though this has been this thing that has been shamed and blamed throughout our entire lives. Mine as an early 80s baby is actually very attractive. Even to the women who are anti-masculinity, there's still something about a man who is calm, who is confident, who can handle his business, who is able to protect and provide quietly, who doesn't need to be in the middle of the room yelling and screaming and calling attention to himself, who doesn't have to have the loudest brand and have ink and tattoos on his neck and his face and everything just to show some form of status or show that he's formidable to other men. They can feel it, right? Like it's so obvious to me now. This is this is me forming a new thesis, because I knew, after that period of time going out in the club, I was feeling pretty good. I had been lifting weights for a little while, I was wearing tight shirts, my arms were starting to look better, still hadn't quit drinking, obviously, and it just became obvious that I had to build something different before I was worthy of having women in my life, before I gave off the vibration of value, of something that's truly attractive, that I don't need to bribe anyone for their attention. I don't need to make myself loud or heard or seen. It's going to be obvious. You're just going to feel it. I know we've all felt it in other men. They've just got that it factor. You're around them, you just feel cool just by being in their presence. And it doesn't matter if they have a lot of money, fancy car, you just feel it and you know it. And it tends to be that those other things are going to happen as a consequence of what that man has built inside of him from however he learned this thing. Maybe it was something that was instilled in him very early. Maybe it was lessons learned a little bit later. Maybe he had somebody who really taught and showed him those things, and I come from an amazing family. I love my parents to death. But it was a very dual income, very 50-50 household. Mom was an educator. So obviously we were in, it was highly religious, but still, a conservative democratic household of men and women are equal. We all share all the chores equally. Everything is, the natural order of things that has worked since the beginning of people was not present as a result of, boomers' backlash towards the things they didn't like in the past. And yes, there were definitely things that needed change, that, the patriarchy was not perfect, women not having agency, not a lot of times being able to go make money, being locked into, abusive relationships where the man has control and power because he has the money. That's not what I believe in or what I desire. But I do believe in being so valuable to protect and provide so well, to make money not a problem, and to be such a confident, capable man that I'm able to attract a woman whose desire is to be my right-hand woman, my partner in crime, and that we work together as a team, that we bring different forms of value to the relationship. I go out, I hunt, I kill, I'm the financial warrior, I'm the leader, and she is the support team I need to be able to do what I do and not get stuck in things that are not valuable with all my skills, capabilities, where my time needs to be, so that I can protect and provide at the most possible level. And her job is to nurture, to support, to make sure that our team effort together, that we succeed as a couple and as a family. And now, that dynamic seems to be so terribly broken right now that the only way I could ever see myself at this point in a real serious relationship is if I can bring so much value to the table, that I'm such a good financial warrior, that I'm so financially independent, capable, I don't rely on anybody but myself, or I'm sitting on a fat stack of assets, there's no debt unless I'm playing with hundreds of millions of dollars. And I understand a lot of ways to use debt on that level. I'm not on that level, and her value is that she is, she sees me, she is so thrilled and just like, bro, look at this dude, this is my man. And she always feels that way. And that initial bribe for attention doesn't wear off, and there's not this weak, lame simp behind that first, bribe for approval. And her mission and my mission is to work together to do something amazing, to be able to have as much freedom, self-reliance, and impact as we can as a couple. My favorite example of a couple that I know of like this is Tom and Lisa Bilyeu. He was the guy that founded Quest Nutrition. It's all the healthy protein bars and such you see in Walmart. He got $1 billion exit out of that, and it sounds like it. I mean, it's a joke compared to what he's done with investing. He was a film producer. He's producing video games now. He's a big podcaster. He builds businesses with other people. This guy does amazing, amazing things. And it's not just one thing. He gets it. He sees the matrix. He is the person that I go to most to understand things and cause and effect. Although I've pretty much had to cut him out of my life because too much focus has been lately on the wild, economic situations, things happening in the Strait of Hormuz. And I've already made my investments for my thesis moving forward, and nothing's changing. So at this point, I was almost making myself mentally unwell by consuming too much of that information when it wasn't changing any outcome or any action of mine. But he and his wife were such an amazing couple, where she saw so much value and potential in him. She supported him so well, and they built themselves together. He wouldn't have made it. I mean, it almost brings tears just thinking about it, of how cool that is. He tells you all the time, he wouldn't have gotten where he was without her support. And she obviously wouldn't be where she is without that team dynamic too. And she does have her own brand. She does make her own money and contribute. But him being the financial conqueror, the financial warrior in that household. I'm sure the dude's got a stack of guns and a bunch of other things too. But even though he's a big ear video game manga guy, this dude is a boss. And her mission and his mission was to work together to do something great. So, no, I'm not looking for a Lila Hormozi. I'm not looking for a Cody Sanchez. I've got a lot of appreciation for what they've done. Alex and Lila Hormozi, ballers, big time money. They are on a mission, and they're killing it. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not the dynamic that's best for me. And I met a girl that does this 4x4 overland camping and traveling and a lot of real same stuff, building brands, building funnels, doing all the stuff I do for my business. And you guys probably know about this. This is the path to building the comeback camp for men. That's how I've created my freedom, by building this getting a new truck that the business owns, doing a lot of great tax strategy, eliminating the entire loan's interest by doing this properly, and giving up a lot of comforts to be able to build the freedom and do what I want to do. And I've met a girl who has a whole lot of similarities to me. And I think I realized pretty quick, she's cool. I bet we would have fun if we interacted. That's also not going to be the right dynamic. That's two yins and no yangs, right? That's not what I'm looking for. But honestly, I love my life being single. Right now, I'm on a mission. I mean, this is my mission. And my business, thank goodness, it's doing well. They could all go away at any point, though. But my mission right now is to keep building myself, keep building this with you, keep building my business and my brands. And someday, if there is to be a relationship, to find that right mutual dynamic where we're both aligned on our mission together. But before I ever get to that point, here's the other thing. I'm not trying to go out and be a man whore, but I am, when I get back into this dating world, because it's time to start getting out there. I mean, it's just go out, learn things, try things, right? Don't try to close the deal. Don't be afraid to, but go out with the intention of getting experience, getting data, understanding what works and what doesn't. Because if there's ever going to be a time I bring a woman into my life, seriously, that we are a team that's aligned. I've done so much to build my own self and my own value. There is no way I'm going to bring somebody into my life that diminishes that takes away, that takes more than they contribute. They got to be high value too. And value to a man and a woman are different in a relationship instinctively, no matter how much we've been trained to say otherwise by the boomers. Value of a man and a woman, value of a woman. All right, so here's another one. Like I said, men are instinctively attracted to 22-year-old women, no matter how old they are, man. They can be 14, they can be 80. Why is that? Fertility. That is the most fertile moment of a woman's life. Men desire instinctively variety. Even if they're faithful, their instinct is still variety. That's why kings have concubines, and there's because survival of the fittest. Get with the most fertile and be able to have as many babies as possible with as many. Andrew Tate might show you a little bit about that if you're an Andrew Tate guy. And then women, again, access to as much resources as possible. That's the whole, open up the gates for the barbarians. So the value of a man with a woman, yes, support and nurture, but also attraction and sex. Sex is something that men have to work for. Sex is something that women can trip and fall and get. So their value, it's not the same. It's more, men need to have sex to feel love. Women need to feel love to have sex. For the most part. Or, to enjoy sex. Or, again, they're out maybe in that phase of early hypergamy, just looking how high can I upgrade? How high can I go? And that gets into that whole, boy, we're having a fun. This is going to be a long one. That gets into that whole other, 10% of the men have 90% of the women fighting for them, right? And those guys, they're probably going to get with some pretty good ones. But they might lower their standards down. Maybe they can get 9s and 10s, and maybe they can get 6 or 7. Why not? And that 6 or 7 now, because she hooked up with a dude that's at the top percent, now thinks that because she had a quick fling or a night with him, that's who she deserves. That's the man that she needs to marry. Which is, that's ridiculous. What do you actually bring to the table that all of these other options don't? That are more attractive, that are more submissive, that are more welcoming to building that, to supporting their man properly and to really treating them right. And these guys, they have optionality. Why would you slow down? Your instinct is to spread the seed with young, beautiful women. So, until they really get worn out, until they're just tired of playing that game, they're probably going to keep playing it. And, I don't see myself actually getting locked in with anybody until I know that I'm part of that top 10%. Or I'll be happy and single and have options for the rest of my life, because my time, my energy, my mission, my purpose is more important than having a mate, especially if they don't bring as much value to my life as I bring to theirs. So I think I actually might have put that together fairly well if you hung through till the end. So thanks for hanging out. Love you. Catch you tomorrow.